So right now, the health crisis that we're currently facing is probably one of the best and free team development opportunities you've ever had as a leader. And today I'm going to explain why. Hi, my name is Chris Littlefield. I am an international speaker. I'm a Harvard Business Review Ascend contributor, and I am the founder of a company called Beyond Thank You. For over the last 5 years alone, I've trained about 8,000 leaders across 6 continents to understand what their people want and need to be at their best and how to nurture cultures where people feel valued and appreciated every day. So today, in this short session, what I want to talk about is how is this health crisis an amazing team development opportunity? What mindset do we need to adopt in order to capitalize on this experience, to strengthen communication, to strengthen our team? And how do we use each one of our virtual meetings to strengthen our relationships with our teams? I'm going to share 10 activities that you can use in your meetings and outside of your meetings and how to do each one of them. And then last, we're going to finish up by thinking about how do we prepare to transition back when that day comes. Now, all the tips I'm talking about today and many of the resources and questions, you can actually go to my site. You can go to beyondthankyou.com/remote-team-building, and you can download this packet that has all the activities and a list of 20 different questions for connection and a virtual meeting checklist as well. So you can go there to be able to download it. So how is a global health crisis a team development opportunity? So right now, everybody's forced to work from home. It's all sitting behind their computer. And although the circumstances that each individual is facing, we are all facing one health crisis together. So prior to my time doing the work with corporations around the world, I started working with organizations like Outward Bound and Project Adventure running team building retreats. And so here's a definition I use of a team building program. It's an uncommon shared experience that forces people to innovate, problem solve, and communicate in new ways that contribute to their development, growth, and effectiveness as a team. So let's look at this current crisis. Is it an uncommon shared experience? Completely. Everybody's facing this in one form or another. Some people are have different circumstances at home. Some people may be home with their kids, others not, right? And other factors at play. People may have family members who are sick and others don't. People may have underlying conditions. People may have more resources to be able to support themselves in this. But yes, is it an uncommon shared experience? Yes, and we're all facing it together. Okay? Does it require innovation and problem solving? I talked to an individual at Fidelity Investments the other day, and in a matter of 3 days, they had to move their whole call center operation remotely. It's forcing people to come up with creative ways to deal with difficult situations. Does it help us communicate in new ways? I don't know about you all, but I've been in more virtual meetings and having beers and drinks with people and hanging out with friends and catching up with friends virtually that I could have done that years ago. So it's forcing me to communicate in new ways. And then the last one, does it help us develop and grow together? Well, that's up to you. So that's up to us as leaders. Whether we come out of this having developed and grown together as a team depends on the mindset that we adopt. So today, one other factor before I go into that, I just want to talk about an important element. To Joseph Grenier of Vital Smarts, virtual teams are 2.5 times more likely to perceive mistrust and incompetence and broken commitments, bad decision-making when with distant colleagues than those who are co-located. Worse, they report it takes 5 to 10 times longer to address those concerns. And this, by the way, is a statistic that is from before the health crisis. So people are dealing with even more right now. So I think it's important to keep this in mind, and so that to keep this in mind as we're talking today, that it's even harder when it's remote and it takes even more effort to continue to build and maintain those relationships and that emotional safety with the people that we're working with. And right now during this crisis, a door has been reopened to be able to reach out and connect with people. Because I don't know about you, but if I've been working with someone for 3 years, it's awkward to check in and be like, what are your kids' names again? Right? And so a door has been open to reconnect with people, to find out what's going on and to check in. And that's what we're going to talk about right now. So here's the mindset shift that we need to talk about. So one of the things I've done in the last couple of years, I've been involved in a best place to work study in the advertising industry. And so each year I had the opportunity to interview the top 10 CEOs of the best places to work in the industry of advertising. And some of these organizations had 40 employees, some had thousands. But there was one commonality when I talked to every single one of these leaders, is that they all adopted what I refer to as a valued employee mindset. They all held this understanding that the success of our organization, as me as a leader, is rooted in the success of our people. And it's my job as a leader to ensure my people have what they need and the support they need to be successful both at work and outside of work as well. And so it's important to keep that valued employee mindset as we go into this and think about what can I do as a leader to be able to support my people? How do I check in right now? And plus, we also need to go from managing a crisis as our mindset to the mindset that I'm managing a crisis to this is also an opportunity for connection. And it's an opportunity to be of contribution to my staff, to our customers, and to the people that we serve every day. And so to adapt that mindset as we're in this crisis. Now, the next thing to understand is that our job is to understand that what our people need. Not everybody needs the same thing right now. Some people may be home alone and they need more support and more check-ins. Other people, maybe what they need is more flexibility. What people need normally, it may be a little different right now. I know for my wife and myself, we're all working at home with a 4-year-old at home, and we're sharing the day. So when I'm working with leaders to help them understand what their people want and need to feel valued, I always joke by saying that 98.3% of the time, which is a made-up statistic, we don't see what people are dealing with each day. And now, given this crisis, we see even less because we don't bump into each other and we don't pass them in the hall each day at work. And so I would say it's 99.98% also a made-up statistic. At the time, we don't know what people are dealing with, and the only way we find that out is to check in. Here's a couple of things that we should understand about all our people. We should take time to understand the following things about our colleagues. How are they feeling mentally and physically with the current situation? Do they live alone? Are they away from family and friends? Do they have the social support that they need? Do they have kids, siblings, roommates, elderly parents that they have to care for they're sharing a space with right now? Do they have the ability to work during the day, or are they trying to get things done when at home is quieter? I have a friend of mine who's a single mother of a 2-year-old, and her son doesn't even watch the screen. So during the day, she can basically get nothing done unless she hires a nanny. And the challenge is then she takes a risk of bringing somebody else who may be sick into her home. So you have to think about understanding what is it our people want and need and what kind of support they need. Okay, do they have the resources and support to stay in self-isolation, or do they have access to shops, food, internet where they are? And so to find out, the only way to find out the answer to these questions is to take time to ask. Now, the next thing is in a second here, we're going to go into talking about what can we do in our virtual meetings to strengthen our team relationships. But before we do, I want to talk about the importance of acknowledgement. Now, I spend the majority of my time training people how to ensure that people feel appreciated and valued every day. And oftentimes I get hired in the realm of employee recognition. Right? And so one of the things I try to do, and it's important to distinguish the difference in terms, is I try to help people address what I see as a terminology problem. And I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I want to share this as a context so you understand what I'm talking about when I say acknowledgement. So many times people collapse rewards and awards with recognition, where rewards and awards are not recognition of themselves, but a delivery tool for a message. And so I use this terminology to help leaders, or this model, to help leaders understand the difference in terminology. And I share, you need to appreciate the person, acknowledge the circumstances, recognize effort and progress, and then we need to reward the results and award standout results. And all of these things that we're doing is about ensuring that our people feel valued. Okay? So first, appreciating the person, and that's largely what we're talking about, is that when we reach out to check in with people, to check in to share, hey, we care, how are you doing, how's your family doing, that's showing people that we appreciate them. Okay? And now what I want to talk about now is the importance of acknowledging the circumstances, especially in this crisis, is taking time to acknowledge the people, the disappointment and grief they may be feeling. Many people prior to this, and many of you may have already done this, and I hope you have, but if you haven't, make sure you're taking time to acknowledge this, because this may be part of the reason why people are getting frustrated on calls, are getting burned out, because there's a great deal of disappointment and grief right now. How many people had plans to go to a conference? I know I work as a speaker, and all of the conferences I had are now rescheduled to 2021. That means I've got no work for the rest of this year. So the disappointment that people are facing, the disappointment and the grief of not being able to go to work, that all the things that you had planned that you were working on may not be happening right now. One lady that I work with down here in Chile where I live, well, a poor woman had been planning a huge event, and then the revolution broke out in Chile, and that got canceled. She'd spent months putting that together. And then she organized another event to support companies dealing with the fact that there was a revolution going in the country, and then COVID-19 came in, and now that got canceled and postponed as well. So remember that there's a great deal of disappointment and grief, and it's important to acknowledge that. Okay, the next one is acknowledging the challenging circumstances that we're working in. We're going to talk about that one in the next section. And then also taking time to acknowledge the sacrifice and risk that if our employees are going into work, if they do need to meet with clients and they need to leave the house, if they do need to do a task that requires them to leave the house, go out to the grocery store, or maybe they're working as a healthcare worker, something else, to, as a leader, to acknowledge that they're risking their health and the health of their family to support the health of others and the safety of others. So we take time to acknowledge that. Now, when it comes to virtual meetings, there are 5 things that should be a part of every single one of our virtual meetings. Now, there's the content that you're going to cover. And so unless you're meeting 3 times a day virtually, if you're meeting every other day or once a week, these 5 things should be a part of every one of your virtual meetings. 1, it should always start by taking time to acknowledge dynamics. Acknowledge the fact that, hey, everybody's working from home. It's okay if your house is messy. It's okay if your hair is messy, if you show up in that virtual mullet, that business on the top, and sportswear on the bottom. It's okay if your kids break in the middle of the meeting, or if you have to step away for a second to be able to go and deal with something, or if it's noisy in the back. But acknowledge the circumstances and do it every single time you get on the call to make it safe so people don't worry about having to be perfect right now. Next, we should always have personal check-ins, even if it's for 5 minutes in the beginning, but to go around and check in and see how people are doing. Now, one great thing to do right now during this section of your call, in addition to asking, hey, how are you coping? How's everybody doing? If people are sharing openly, that's great. But also try using something that I call a pulse check question. Okay? By asking something, hey, I just want to check in on how everybody's energy level is doing right now. Or how's everybody coping right now? 10, you're doing amazing and you feel like you got everything handled. To 1, you're dragging and you're struggling right now. Share that number in the chat right now. Or have people share with their hands and say, hey, I'm a 10, or I'm a 4, or I'm a 5, whatever it is, and then have people explain. Because it's easier to share a number and then ask people, so why did you pick that number, and what can we do to support you right now? Is there any resource you need? Is there any way we can be more flexible and more supportive right now to be able to show people that you care? Now, the next section, we want to make sure that we have an organization or a situation update. Right? Each call, check in and say, hey, here's the update, here's the new information I have, or, hey, I don't have any new information. As soon as I have it, I'll share it back with you. And during this time, give employees an opportunity to ask questions. Hey, do you know anything about this? And then jot down those questions to see if you can get the answers, or share the answers if you have them. But always have time to have an organizational situation update so you can keep everybody on the same page. And then at some point during the call, and we're gonna cover this in the next few slides, is make sure that you have time for fun and laughter. Right now, and especially in times of crisis, we need to laugh and we need to play together. And if we're going to be on multiple hour-long calls, make sure that we're having time for fun and play. And at the end, make sure that on every single one of your call that you're acknowledging people for getting on the call, given everything they're dealing with outside of here. And at this point, regardless of whether you're in a virtual call or not, taking time to recognize your people. And like I said earlier, is recognize progress and effort, right? Is it right now? It may not be amazing that someone's getting that report done, but the fact that they're getting that report done with 3 kids at home, or by themselves, or trying to do all that work with not the normal software that they have access to, acknowledge them for the fact that they're getting it done regardless what they're having to deal with outside. Because people don't want to be recognized for the result, they want to be recognized for the process, the ups and downs that they had to work through and get through to be able to produce that result. Okay, next, I want to talk about how do we continue to build connection? Now, here are some of the activities I want to share. So 1 is the beauty of everybody working from home is many people have their family right there. It's hard to have people meet each other's family in an office environment because it takes a lot of logistics. It interrupts the workday. Well, now the family is actually interrupting the workday by walking into one of your meetings anyway. So use that as an opportunity to be able to connect and meet each other's families. If people are there, sitting right next to their family, if their kids are there, invite them onto the call. Have people introduce their pets. You know, if their kid busts in, have everybody ask the kid a question about their favorite Marvel superhero, or what have they been doing or playing, or one thing that they love about their mother or father that they work with, right? But use that time to meet families. Have people go around and do home tours. You know, walk around like, hey, here's my office right now, and if you look outside right now, I'll try to do this without messing up. Here is my home in Chile and what it looks like outside where I live. But give people an opportunity, oh no, now my camera's gonna be messed up, to meet each other's family and to be able to connect, okay? So Take that time to meet each other's families. Next, do something like show and tell, like, hey, here's a picture of my mom and my dad and my sisters and me back when I had a lot more hair, right? Or, something like that, or have people share one of their favorite things or one of their favorite memories. Here's a piece of wood that I collected one day when I was on the beach with my 3-year-old daughter. We were building forts down by the ocean, and we were pretending that we were on a shipwreck. And so I saved this wood, and at some point I'm going to carve it out and make something for my daughter with it. But do something, have show and tell where people share something. Have people share their remote office setup. I work remotely all the time. Other people may not. But how do you set up and have people share what's been working and what hasn't been working for them? Okay. Now here's a few ideas to bring a little more fun into your work. Maybe do something like word of the day, where you pick a word like cucumber, and then people have to try to sneak that word into their meetings, into their chats without other people catching it. Something along the lines of like, I think that was a really great idea. I think we should cucumber it just like that next time. But do something to bring a little fun and play. You can also play a game like freeze, where you pretend that you're frozen and try to convince your coworkers that you're frozen, where they come to the point and they go, oh, looks like Chris is frozen, right? But do something to be able to bring fun and play to it. Another thing we can do is a simple game, which I call moving troll, where right now, look at the backdrop and see what you notice. I'm going to then take a second to cover the camera. And you try to notice what has changed in the background, right? And you can have people just all of a sudden turn their camera off for a second, move something around their office, but bring play into it. You can have dress-up day where people change their outfits or come dressed up or wear that virtual mullet, the business on the top and party on the bottom. I don't know what that would be, but anyway, you can do that. You can also organize a virtual scavenger hunt. And like I said, there's tips to do this in the download that's on my website. But organize something, a virtual scavenger hunt, where you can send people around the world. And I love, love, love this activity. And what you do is ahead of time, and there's ideas, like I said, in that handout, but you pick a location. Like, I want you to go find Bull Feeney's Bar in Portland, Maine, and I want you to go on Google Maps, find the bar, and look, what is the place, if you're facing the bar, what is the store to the left-hand side, and what are they selling out in front? Then pick a random location on Google Maps and put it onto Street View. Like, here's a location in northern Norway. I want you to go 1 block to the left here, find the yellow barn, and what does the sign on that barn say? Divide your team into 2 separate groups, send them out for 20 minutes on this virtual scavenger hunt, find answers to questions and things like that, but do something to bring a little fun and play into your work. Because more than anything, people need to laugh, and that laughing triggers our parasympathetic nervous system into rest and recover anyway, and helps us have better resources to be able to get through the situation together. Okay, another one is go a little bit deeper. Send your people out and have them interview customers. Have them reach out to 3 of their favorite customers. And those customers may be internal people in other departments or customers that they actually serve. Have them go and interview them and say, hey, what are you dealing with right now? How can we best support you? And also you can have them interview about what was our service like beforehand? What can we do to enhance our service or bring it to the next level? But send your people out to reach out to their customers, internal or external, to be able to learn and be able to take your work and your service to another level. Have each one of your meetings have a question of the day. And like I said, you'll have 20 questions in the download that I have. But ask something like, hey, what's something you completely took for granted prior to this crisis that you really appreciate or are grateful for now? Or what's one of the coolest things you've cooked over the last few weeks? Or what's the best thing you've watched on Netflix? And then go into slightly deeper questions, like what's been the biggest struggle you've had right now? What's been the thing that's been a lot harder than you expected to be? And ask questions that are progressively more vulnerable, where people can share a little bit more. But use those to get to know a little bit more about each other. Then also use this time to have virtual coffees or virtual wine with one of your individual employees. Many times we don't take time for those individual one-on-ones. Well, now, over the next few weeks, schedule one-on-ones with all your employees and sit down and have an hour-long conversation. Use questions. Ask, hey, how are things going beforehand and how are you dealing with it right now? But use this time to signal to people that you value them. Okay, another cool activity you can do is have everybody on your team use this time to do virtual 360s. I call them live 360s, where they go around and they interview 5 different coworkers about what it's like to work with them. And there's some questions for this included in the download. Another one is letter from the crisis. Many people, we did this activity back in high school or at summer camp, where you wrote a letter to yourself in the beginning of an experience, and then you get to open it later to see, what you thought and how you thought the experience was going to go. So have people write a letter from the crisis. How are they feeling right now? What are their concerns right now? What are their worries? How do they think this is going to turn out? And then have them send that to you as an email, or have them write it in a physical letter and close that up. And then at some point in the next year, read it over as a group and share what were your observations. Now, the thing to remember in all of this is that your biggest tool is questions, right? Those questions open up a door. They shift our focus to see something different. And there's an opportunity right now through questions to build deeper relationships and deeper connection with each other. It's also a great time, it's not included on this list here, but to run a mini retreat with your team where you sit back and say, hey, before the crisis and after the crisis, let's have 2 conversations. How were we working well as a team? What could we do to enhance how we were working together? What wasn't working so well? And use this time to reflect on how you're working before. And when we go back, what can we do to enhance our work together? But use this time to have a mini retreat together. Man, now you have a bunch of activities you can do to build relationships with your team during this time, both one-on-one and in your virtual meetings. But there's going to be some point where we may transition back to working, hopefully, where there is a time where we are going to transition back to working in our physical office space. And many people just jump right into it and go back to business as usual. But many people, that transition won't be that easy. Maybe they won't have their childcare set up yet. Maybe that they have lost a loved one in this process, or maybe they were traumatized and there's a great deal of fear and anxiety around this whole process. So remember to focus on consciously transitioning back to work, right? And here's a couple questions that you can use. So schedule some time to talk about it, to do it virtually before you even go back to the office. Sit down and take time to start having that conversations. And here's some of the questions you can use. Okay, how are you feeling about going back to work? What are your hopes, fears, needs, and concerns about returning back? What are you going to miss about working remotely? And what excites you about going back to work? What have you learned about yourself, the team, and how we work in this crisis? How have we improved as a team? And what lessons from this crisis do we want to incorporate into how we work moving forward? But take time to have a conscious conversation, an intentional conversation with people. And then once you do go back to work, bring everybody together that first day, right? Sit everybody down, check back in, and transition back into your physical working space and talk about how do we maintain some of the key lessons that we learned from this time together, and how do we transition those to, how do we use those to help us support us through the transition and also support us in our work moving forward. So everyone, I want to finish by reminding ourselves to be kind, to be empathetic, and to be patient with one another. Because during this time, we have one of the greatest opportunities to show people that we care for them more than just what we need from them. We have a time to reconnect with people, to find out more about what they're dealing with, to share our lives outside of work, to better connect with people, to build stronger relationships, and to enhance our communications, and to ensure that our people feel valued in this difficult situation that we're facing right now. So I want to finish up by saying thank you. Thank you for taking the time to be on here. Thank you, Marie, for organizing this summit. And remember that if you'd like to, you can go onto my website to beyondthankyou.com /remote-team-building and download this resource here where you'll get all the activities that we talked about today. And please, here's my email, here's my website. If you have any questions, if I can support you in any way, please reach out and let me know. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and stay kind. Thank you, everyone, and have an amazing day.